Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're diving into something absolutely fascinating, and that's exploring the moments in BTS's GQ magazine interviews where they said things for the very first time, revelations and statements that they had never shared before in any other interview or public setting. GQ magazine has had the privilege of interviewing BTS multiple times over the years, and because GQ tends to ask deeper, more thoughtful questions than typical entertainment media, and because the interview format is often more relaxed and conversational, BTS members have opened up in ways they haven't in other contexts, sharing thoughts, feelings, experiences, and perspectives that were genuinely new information for ARMY and for the public. We're going to explore what makes GQ interviews special as a platform for these revelations, look at specific examples of first-time statements that members made in various GQ interviews, analyze why they chose to share these particular things in this particular context, discuss what these revelations tell us about the members' growth and maturity, and understand why these first-time statements matter so much to fans and to understanding BTS as artists and as people. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, smash that like, drop a comment telling me which BTS GQ moment impacted you most, and let's explore these incredible first-time revelations. Let's start by understanding what makes GQ magazine interviews different from other media appearances that BTS does, because this context is crucial to understanding why members feel comfortable sharing new information in this setting. GQ is a men's lifestyle and fashion magazine that's known for in-depth interviews with cultural figures, artists, actors, musicians, and thought leaders. Unlike entertainment news outlets that might focus on surface-level questions about comebacks, chart performance, or fan service content, GQ tends to ask questions about artistry, creative process, personal philosophy, life experiences, and deeper reflections on career and identity. The interview format is typically longer and more conversational rather than rapid-fire questions, which gives interviewees time and space to really think about their answers and elaborate on their thoughts. The tone is more mature and sophisticated, treating the subjects as serious artists and thinkers rather than just pop stars or entertainers. For BTS members, who are incredibly thoughtful and have a lot to say about their work, their experiences, and their perspectives on various topics, this kind of interview environment creates the perfect conditions for them to share things they might not share elsewhere because the questions invite that depth and the format supports it. One of the most striking aspects of BTS's GQ interviews over the years has been the members opening up about their internal struggles, doubts, and challenges in ways they hadn't done before publicly. In the K-pop industry and in celebrity culture generally, there's often pressure to maintain a positive, confident, successful image at all times. Admitting to struggles, vulnerabilities, or doubts can be seen as weakness or as potentially concerning to fans. But in GQ interviews, multiple members have for the first time publicly acknowledged things like experiencing imposter syndrome despite their massive success, having moments of doubt about whether they deserve their achievements, struggling with the pressure of expectations, dealing with anxiety about the future, and wrestling with questions about identity and purpose beyond being BTS members. These weren't casual mentions, these were thoughtful, articulate discussions of genuine emotional and psychological experiences that many people go through but that celebrities, especially in K-pop, rarely discuss openly. The first time a member opened up about these kinds of internal struggles in a GQ interview, it was groundbreaking because it showed a level of honesty and vulnerability that challenged the typical idol image and made them relatable in a completely different way. Another category of first-time revelations in GQ interviews involves the members discussing their creative process and artistic aspirations with a level of depth and technical detail they hadn't shared before. BTS members, particularly the rappers who are heavily involved in songwriting and production, have incredible knowledge about music creation, but in typical interviews they might only get surface-level questions about it. In GQ interviews, they've been asked to really explain their creative process, their influences, their technical approaches, their artistic philosophies, and their ambitions as creators beyond just being performers. For the first time in some of these interviews, members discussed specific production techniques they use, explained their songwriting processes in detail, talked about the literary and philosophical influences on their lyrics, shared their thoughts on the relationship between commercial success and artistic integrity, and articulated their long-term artistic visions for themselves and for BTS. This wasn't just "we work hard in the studio" generic answers, this was genuine artistic discourse at a level that demonstrated their sophistication as creators and gave fans and industry professionals alike a much deeper appreciation for the artistry behind BTS's music. The topic of fame and its impact on their lives is another area where GQ interviews have elicited first-time revelations from BTS members. Becoming globally famous at the level BTS achieved, especially when that fame came relatively quickly and was unprecedented for Korean artists, is an experience that very few people can relate to or truly understand. In various GQ interviews, members have for the first time openly discussed what it actually feels like to lose privacy completely, to not be able to do normal things like walk down the street or go to a cafe, to have every aspect of their lives scrutinized and analyzed, to feel the weight of representing not just themselves but their group, their company, their country, and an entire generation of fans. They've talked about the strange experience of being treated as products or symbols rather than as people, about the loneliness that can come with fame despite being surrounded by people constantly, about the fear of losing themselves or forgetting who they are outside of their idol persona, and about struggling to maintain normal relationships and connections when your life is so abnormal. These reflections on fame were shared in GQ interviews with a level of honesty and introspection that hadn't appeared in other interviews, perhaps because the interviewers asked the right questions and created space for these reflections, or perhaps because the members themselves felt ready to share these thoughts in a context that felt appropriate for such serious topics. GQ interviews have also been a platform where BTS members first discussed their relationships with each other with unusual candor and depth. While BTS has always emphasized their brotherhood and closeness, and fans see their chemistry and content, there's a difference between showing a dynamic and explicitly articulating your understanding of it and your feelings about it. In certain GQ interviews, members have for the first time talked about specific conflicts they've had with each other, not in a scandalous way but in an honest acknowledgement that 7 people living and working together intensely for years will inevitably have disagreements and tensions. They've discussed how they've learned to communicate better with each other, how they've developed conflict resolution skills, how they've come to understand and appreciate each other's different personalities and working styles, and how their relationships have evolved from being colleagues or friends to being something more like family. Some members have talked about feeling dependent on the group in ways that were both comforting and sometimes anxiety-inducing, about the fear of what would happen if the group didn't exist anymore, and about how they've worked on developing their individual identities while still being part of this collective. These nuanced discussions of group dynamics and interpersonal relationships were revelatory because they showed the complexity and maturity of how BTS members think about their relationships with each other. The subject of military service and its impact on their careers and lives is another area where GQ interviews have featured important first-time discussions. Before BTS members actually enlisted, the topic of mandatory military service was somewhat taboo or awkward in interviews, with members often giving careful, diplomatic answers that didn't reveal their true feelings. But in some GQ interviews, particularly as military service became more imminent and then as members began completing their service, there have been more honest discussions about their feelings about this mandatory duty, their concerns about how it would affect their careers and momentum, their thoughts about fairness and citizenship and duty, and their reflections on the experience of military service and how it changed them. Members have talked about the strange experience of knowing that at the peak of their global success they would have to pause everything for nearly 2 years, about the fear that the music industry and public interest might move on without them, about feeling both proud to serve their country and frustrated by the timing and necessity of it, and about how the experience of military service gave them new perspectives on discipline, physical fitness, time management, and appreciating normal life. These candid reflections on such a significant and somewhat controversial topic were important first-time revelations that showed BTS members' maturity in grappling with complex issues. GQ interviews have also elicited first-time discussions about the members' individual aspirations and fears about solo careers and life after BTS. While BTS has always been presented as a unified group with incredible loyalty to each other and to the group concept, it would be unrealistic to expect that 7 talented individuals wouldn't also have individual dreams and ambitions. In various GQ interviews, members have opened up about their desires to pursue solo music that might be different from BTS's sound, their interests in acting, producing, fashion, art, or other creative fields, their curiosity about what they could achieve individually, and their simultaneous fear about whether they could be successful on their own or whether their success is entirely tied to being part of BTS. They've discussed the guilt they sometimes feel about having individual ambitions when BTS is such an important collective, the concern about whether pursuing solo work might be seen as abandoning the group or being disloyal, and the challenge of balancing individual identity and growth with group cohesion and commitment. These honest discussions about individual aspirations within the context of group loyalty showed a level of self-awareness and emotional intelligence that was truly impressive and gave fans permission to support both BTS as a group and the members as individuals without feeling conflicted. The topic of mental health and seeking professional help is another area where GQ interviews have featured groundbreaking first-time revelations from BTS members. Mental health is still somewhat stigmatized in many cultures including Korean culture, and celebrities often avoid discussing it out of fear of being seen as weak or unstable. But in certain GQ interviews, BTS members have openly discussed seeking therapy or counseling, taking time for mental health, learning to set boundaries to protect their psychological well-being, developing coping mechanisms for stress and anxiety, and normalizing the idea that even successful, talented, privileged people need mental health support sometimes. One member talking about going to therapy and finding it helpful was a first-time public acknowledgement that was incredibly brave and important because it helped destigmatize mental health care for millions of fans who might be struggling with similar issues. The willingness to be this vulnerable and honest about mental health in a public interview showed tremendous courage and a sense of responsibility to use their platform for positive influence. GQ interviews have also been a space where members first discussed their evolving understanding of success and what actually matters to them in life. Early in their careers, success might have been defined by chart positions, award wins, recognition, and proving doubters wrong. But as they achieved levels of success that exceeded anything they could have imagined, members began questioning what success really means and what actually brings fulfillment and happiness. In various GQ interviews, members have reflected on realizing that external achievements don't necessarily correlate with internal satisfaction, that fame and success can actually be isolating or burdensome, that relationships and personal growth might be more important than professional accomplishments, and that defining success on their own terms rather than by industry standards or public expectations has become increasingly important to them. These philosophical reflections on success and meaning showed a maturation in their thinking and values that was really profound and gave fans a different lens through which to think about their own definitions of success and fulfillment. Another fascinating category of first-time revelations in GQ interviews involves members discussing their relationship with ARMY and fan culture with unusual honesty and nuance. While BTS always expresses gratitude and love for ARMY, which is genuine, there are also complex aspects of the artist-fan relationship that are rarely discussed openly. In some GQ interviews, members have talked about the pressure of feeling responsible for millions of people's happiness and emotional well-being, the concern about disappointing fans or not living up to their expectations, the strange experience of being idealized and put on a pedestal when they see themselves as flawed regular people, the guilt when they can't always maintain the positive energy and gratitude that fans expect, and the challenge of receiving unconditional love from millions of people they'll never know personally. They've also discussed the beautiful aspects of this relationship, like feeling less alone in the world knowing there are people who understand and support them, feeling motivated to work harder because they don't want to let fans down, and experiencing a sense of purpose from knowing their music and messages help people. These nuanced discussions of the artist-fan relationship showed incredible emotional maturity and honesty about something that's often oversimplified. So guys, that's a comprehensive exploration of the first-time revelations that BTS members have shared in GQ magazine interviews over the years. From opening up about internal struggles, doubts, and vulnerabilities with unprecedented honesty, to discussing their creative processes and artistic aspirations with technical depth and sophistication, from reflecting candidly on the reality and impact of global fame on their lives and psyche, to articulating the complexity of their relationships with each other including conflicts and growth, from sharing honest thoughts about military service and its impact on their careers and perspectives, to discussing individual aspirations and fears about life after BTS with remarkable self-awareness, from bravely opening up about mental health struggles and seeking professional help to destigmatize these issues, to sharing their evolving philosophical understanding of what success really means beyond external achievements, to offering nuanced and honest reflections on their complex relationship with ARMY and fan culture. GQ interviews have consistently been a platform where BTS members felt comfortable and were given the space to share things they had never said before in other contexts. These first-time revelations matter because they give us deeper insight into who these 7 men really are beyond their carefully managed public images. They demonstrate their growth and maturation as individuals and artists. They show their courage in being vulnerable and honest even when it might be risky. They help fans understand them as complex human beings rather than just entertainers. And they use their platform to discuss important topics like mental health, success, identity, and relationships in ways that can genuinely help their audience think about these issues in their own lives. What first-time revelation from a BTS GQ interview impacted you the most? Let me know in the comments. And if this exploration helped you appreciate the depth and honesty that BTS brings to these interviews, please give this video a huge thumbs up, share it with fellow ARMY, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.